This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Okay, the lights again, please. Did everybody see the moonwalking bear the second time around as it came in from the right, did some really funky Michael Jackson moves, and then left again to the left of the screen? Okay. Has anybody seen that clip before? I just want to see one or two people. Yeah, it's done its rounds. Okay. So I am a troublemaker. I'm an instigator. I'm an innovator. My name is Jan-Derick Nel. I'm going to be talking to you about the bear and you. Whether you've seen it or not, every day that we go about our business, specifically as entrepreneurs, we have an opportunity that we normally miss a lot of the times because we got our eyes so fixated on the ball. Does anybody ever experience this? Somebody else comes in from left, they're not even an entrepreneur. They might be some silly person that you don't actually pay attention to, and they come in from left field and they point out something in your business or in your work environment, your studies, doesn't matter where you are, and you go, why did I not see that? Anybody know what I'm talking about here? Okay? That's the bear. We don't see the moonwalking bear because our brains are so fixated on one single thing. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about that today. So, the bear and you, specifically an agile mind, and how that relates to an agile business. So what mind state are you in? Who here reflects? Anybody reflect on what they do every day? Do you journal? Do you become quiet? Do you have a coach? Do you have a mentor? No. Obviously in this environment, some of those answers should hopefully be yes. Okay, I see nods, I see some hands going up. Great. The catch is, you might be missing something because your mind is caught in a certain function that you are inherently predisposed to do because you're wired in a certain way. We grow up and we've got certain genetic stuff that we're wired with that makes us focus in one area only. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack a few tools just to look at a few things, hopefully help you see that there's things you can do to help build an agile mind. Because we live in a complex time. And not complicated, a Boeing is complicated, but a flock of birds can be complex. Right? So if you do business, you go in a complex environment where all the parts are constantly shifting and you never have a solid grip on one part, and once you think you do, all of a sudden it might be shifting to another direction. Alright, have you ever tried to run with some jello on a plate? Anybody tried to do that before? Okay, disastrous, right? Because everything starts moving and you can't predict which way the jello is going to move. And running a business is like running with a plate of jello. The quicker you can adapt and have your hand move in the right direction or your mind move in the right direction when things come from the left or from the right, the sooner you are able to adapt and actually capitalize on the small, seemingly small challenges that come your way. John Lennon had said, life happens while we're making other plans. Yes? Okay. If I'm going too fast, if I'm saying something silly, you're welcome to pause me in a moment, but we will open up for questions afterward. Okay. Right. So, anybody know Jim Collins? Jim Collins, business author. Oh, I thought I was going to be overwhelmed with yeses. One person. Thank you very much, Philip, for. Okay. Right. Jim Collins. If you don't know him, and I'm going to be touching on a few other authors and things right now, go and have a look at Jim Collins. Right. Great business author. Built to Last is one of his great books, and in that he speaks about actually preserving the core and stimulating progress. So once you have your moral compass, the who you are, the what you're actually doing can change. So remain true to your identity as an entrepreneur, but your business can completely change. 3M is a good example. You know, 3M, the business that does now Post-its and all that kind of stationery and things like that. I don't know how many of you know, they actually started out, and that's where 3M comes from, is Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. And now they're making Post-its. And voila. They still remain true to who they are, but in essence they started adapting to the world around them because they saw how things are changing. You can look around, some of the companies that have reinvented them once or twice. Nintendo, for example, they're in a crisis at the moment. If they can't shift out of their current state, the Xbox, the PlayStation, all those kinds of gaming environments and consoles are going to completely overrun them. And Nintendo, 125 years old. They started with playing cards. They did reinvent themselves. They did have an agile mind. This is not working. No, but we make playing cards. Do you really? Or do you entertain the world? Do you bring joy? And that's the core. But if you can stimulate progress, you can remain true to that and let go of maybe a preconceived idea that's actually currently being enforced upon you, maybe because of people around you, maybe because there's a dominant thinking in society. Preserve the core, stimulate progress. You've got to have a bit of both. It's a bit of a paradoxical thinking. That's why I'm using that sign up there. And Jim Collins basically relies on it heavily as well. Right, that's Jim Collins. We move along and we get something, and I hope I pronounce this correctly. It's a Welsh word from the Welsh author or thinker behind this theory called Cynefin. And it's actually spelled C-Y-N-E-F-I-N, Cynefin. And it's a tool that's been created to help us understand how to best navigate and decide, make decisions with an agile mind, how to adapt, whether we are working in a simple, chaotic, complicated, or complex world. And they shift. It's not static. You can see there's a little space in the middle that's open that indicates normally when you're working as an entrepreneur, you're working into a certain direction, things look like, yes, I've got it, I'm winning, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden something changes and your footing just slides away underneath and you don't know where you are. And disorder takes over. And if you can see that the disorder is actually the opportunity, if you can adapt, and you can then move from your simple to the complicated or complex and feel comfortable in either one, you start developing an agile mind. You start seeing the bear and the ball. You actually have to be able to do both. You have to walk and shoot. If you just pause and just shoot, or if you just walk, you're going to get stuck. So that was Cynefin. This is a more traditional model, and I've actually used this in a small business where they didn't have any direction. There was an entrepreneur division and somebody taking care of a division within that business. And it's from Kaplan & Norton's balanced scorecard. And all it does, it says you've got a strategy or a vision, and then there's 4 different sections in your business. You have the financial, you have the customer, learning and growth, and ultimately your business processes. And you have to be able to create a synergy and pay attention to all these different elements inside of your business. Now this is more specific for the corporate world, but I successfully used that to help the business transition and get clarity in terms of where are we, what are we doing, what is the vision, how are we supposed to execute, what is the next step. It can help a lot. Specifically, I have 2 or 3 people in a business, and everybody has to start thinking in the same direction. How do you do that? You break it down to different sections. Do we think the same in terms of our business processes? Should we move faster? Should we move slower? Should we be structured, non-structured? How do we communicate with one another in terms of this? Once you can clarify that with a simple, broken down formula like this, an approach, you start gaining insight into a language, a shared language between different partners in a business or any relationship. It's quite interesting. It doesn't matter what kind of project you actually do. As long as you have different parties involved and you want to create strategy, you can also use it for yourself. Doesn't matter where. A very, very useful tool. What then happens is, as soon as you be able to compartmentalize different functions within the business, you can say, well, okay, great. I can isolate 2 or 3 factors today, right? I can take away some of those guys passing the ball around and let me just start looking at what I actually have to do today and focus your mind and then start acting upon it. The scenario mind, and all I've got on there is a very, hopefully it's calming and soothing to you as well. That's what I thought when I saw the picture, and that's what I was trying to look at. A scenario mind. Now, a scenario mind is a calm and focused on the moment mind, focused on the moment mind. It's a mind that doesn't continuously jump around to different topics and different challenges. Because the greatest distraction that we can have is not external distractions. Not somebody walking in the door or a kid coming up to ask you something. It is actually emotional distractions from inside. You've just had a tough time financially somewhere, or a relationship, and you sit down and you try to focus on this business problem. And there's this little guy that continuously barges into your thought room and just without knocking and makes himself heard no matter what. Listen to me, you don't have enough money, it's going to be terrible, you suck, you're going to burn in hell, whatever the message is. Okay? We all have a little different message of that little guy storming into the room. Okay? Now, a scenario mind is a mind that is able to close the door, lock the door, take the key and say nobody in unless I say so. But it's very difficult. It takes practice. It takes constant practice. You have to every day get into a space, whether it's the morning, the evening, whatever works best, and be able to say, I am calm, nothing will happen. You reprogram your mind. And the door doesn't swing open anymore, and that little guy does not barge in with a lot of noise and distractions. That's nonsense. When I look at entrepreneurs, and this is why I get so passionate about entrepreneurs, I believe business, and entrepreneurs specifically, has the power to recreate society. Think about this. In the business world, we get rewarded. So that's finance, that's security, that is esteem. There's a whole range of things that goes with money. But not only that, that's only part of the picture. The other part is that we actually also work with other people. It's a relational effort. We create meaning and purpose through what we do. When we look at great companies, think about Apple. Why? Why was Steve Jobs so successful? Why did he do? Because he created a product that in our hearts we were convicted. Yes, I agree. That's what the world sees when they look at Apple. And when you're in a business, you are creating. In an entrepreneurial business, you are creating. Or even thinking entrepreneurially. I was just speaking quite recently with Christina, and we were talking about how no matter what you do actually today, you've got to be entrepreneurial. Whether you're a student, a business person, working in a large, big, small organization, it does not matter. You have to think, the buck stops with me. I have to reinvent my own role, and hopefully through that, wherever I am involved. And when you're an entrepreneur, it speaks directly to your business. So it starts with a scenario mind. You start with a calm, focused, in the moment mind, and then from there you start progressing and actually can take action, directed and focused action. And that's what we call the top-down and bottom-up mind. Your top-down is the one that can say, I can take charge right now, I can close the door, I can focus, I can organize, I can systemize, I am in charge. The bottom-up mind is the mind, however, that is equally as important. And some like to call it the left-right brain, but it's not just in functionality in terms of how you execute a task. But the bottom-up brain actually allows you to recreate. So you need to take time during the day, preferably where you go out, and nature and water has been proven to be two really good elements around you that stimulate new thoughts. So you go top down, you make sure that you contact your supplier, you pay everybody on time, you get your studies done, whatever it is, top down, right? But then the bottom up, you go sit in the botanical gardens or wherever, you take out a doodling pad, and you start doodling. You listen to the water, you start becoming aware of your environment, you start relaxing your muscles, and all of a sudden, and how many times have you heard, for instance, big inventions, big insights, was that aha moment in the bath, or slipping on a towel, or whatever it was, that they didn't think they were going to get that insight, and then all of a sudden, voila, there it is. The eureka moment. Because that's when the bottom-up brain gets a chance to say, I know, I know, I know. But the top-down brain is so hard on the bottom-up brain that he never gets a chance to say, I can actually do this in blue, and then it's going to work. And that's what happens. When you start taking a break like that, you shift things around a little bit, you make it loose, and all of a sudden this beautiful stuff comes up from the bottom-up mind. Next up is, do you know your personality? Do you really know who you are? Do you know how you function? Do you know your preferences? Do you know how to deal with information? Do you know what your preference is for a kind of lifestyle? Because one of the biggest things that keeps us from seeing the bear is your specific personality, the way you deal with information coming to you. And if you could start becoming aware of it, then you can start dealing with some of the weaknesses it creates. Now, there's a lot, and I'll get to that in a moment as well. Debate about, oh, but should we be focusing on our strengths? Should we be focusing on weaknesses? If you want to get into the game, know your strengths. Absolutely. Compete on your strengths. But in order to win the game, overcome your weaknesses. You still focus on your strengths. Strengths is still the thing that gets you in the game, makes you unique. But if you overcome your weaknesses, that's what, I mean, think about this now, right? You got a great rugby team, and a bunch of forwards, they're excellent, but the rest of the team, they kind of suck. But it's okay, we've got the forward, they're great. Half the team is fantastic, we're going to win. They're the best in the world in whatever they do. No, you're not going to win. You need to address the weaknesses in your team in order to get the ball across the line. You're going to do that in such a way that reflects your strengths, but your weaknesses will get you to the line and your strengths will put the ball on the other side. So, knowing your personality, tools like the Enneagram. I don't know if any of you is familiar with the Enneagram. It's an age-old, it's one of the oldest ones. I used to facilitate in the corporate environment. And what I used to do in there is work with large organizations, the Anglos, FBs, all those. And we used to use this tool in the teams so that they can start seeing the bear. And once they see the bear, they start working so much better together. They start thinking, because you go in, the moment you want to say, oh, judgment, you do this badly, I don't like you, but you go, hang on, isn't this just my preference? Isn't this just the way I like it? Maybe there's actually a different approach to this. So let me calm down, think about this for a moment, and then maybe tap, and that's what the beauty of this specific tool, it allows you to actually grab onto different parts in your personality. It's actually a tool that it allows you to develop and take on certain personality traits that other people actually have, incorporate that into your own arsenal, and then try and attack the problem again. The Enneagram. Another one you might all know is the Myers-Briggs type indicator. It's from Carl Jung. And that is actually still very useful. All of these things can be critiqued. Absolutely. I'm not saying one is correct. I hope what you see here is that actually, if you want to grow as an entrepreneur, you have to be constantly learning. And learning does not mean studying. I just had a big debate with some students the last week, and I said, your degree actually only allows you, gives you a passport to lifelong learning. And lifelong learning does not mean you are going to always be enrolled as a student somewhere. No. But it means that you are open to critique, to feedback, that you will try something else. You know Einstein's old quote, if you keep trying the same thing the same way, but you expect different results, you're insane. So doing this hopefully breaks the insanity in your own life. So here you go. You don't have to go to a psychologist later today. You can just ask me for the slides, use them, and you will be well. All right. So that's the Myers-Briggs. And then also the Strengths Finder. And that's why I said I was going to just allude to this as well. The Strengths Finder is a tool, and I think it's used here as well, if I'm not mistaken, and I think some of you might know it. And that's a tool, it's an online assessment. You do it, and it helps you identify your top strengths. Right? Any tennis player, for example, wants to know, when I get into crunch time, I'm going to set up the game, I'm going to overcome my weakness and set up my game in such a way so that I can use my backhand or whatever it is to the best of my ability, because that's where my strength lies. But you can't get to your strengths if you don't overcome your weaknesses, and that's the synergy between them. So the Strengths Finder helps you identify that, and that's definitely the starting point. I've spoken to many individuals, and it's normally a lot of things you already know. This stuff, you probably experience it. You go through the test, you go like, yeah, I already know this. But once you start contextualizing, and especially with the Enneagram, I found a few times in the past, I go back, I sit down, I go, oh, right, there I am, I just caught myself in the act. When you go into a day and you start doing a few things and you start catching yourself in the act, it becomes very powerful. It becomes a tool. Now I can change. As soon as you can see, oh my goodness, this is actually what I'm doing. I'm thinking this way, I'm acting this way. I can't. I need to be able to move left or right. I need to be much more agile in the way that I think, and then ultimately in the way that I run my business. And that is all I want to share with you right now.